Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Hope you're all doing great, and in this video we will be going over 7 different class setups that you can use in rank play independent of your rank, as well as showing you the correct way of using the Gunsmith so that you can build the perfect weapon that suits you if an upcoming nerf update takes place. All of the class setups shown in this video are based on the recoil pattern of each weapon, the overall percentage change in weapon stats when using a specific combination of attachments, as well as different playstyles. So whether you are new in rank play or you're currently stuck to a specific rank and have no idea which type of class to use because there are so many attachments in each category, then this video will help you. So without further delay, let's go. So we are going to start with the assault rifles, and obviously in this case there is only one, which is going to be the MCW. Now if we test the recoil pattern without actually touching the stick, so in this case I'm just shooting, you can clearly see that the majority of recoil is vertical. So now when we are going to build our MCW class setup with improved recoil and control, we need to focus on attachments that primarily reduce vertical recoil. Now keep in mind, when building any class setup, it doesn't matter whether this is a max movement or no recoil class, you have to take into account balancing all other weapon stats as well. What I mean by this, if I decide to do a zero recoil class setup on the MCW by choosing all of the attachments that improve the recoil control, then this will affect other important aspects of the weapon, such as sprint to fire speed and the overall movement. So for example, as you can see, the weapon has almost no recoil at all. In this case, the sprint to fire speed is very low, almost to the point that you might feel your game slow and unresponsive, and especially when sliding or shooting. Not to mention the fact that tactical spring further extends this delay, and since most people use tactical spring, there is no need to convert your AR into an LMG, especially when you're playing rank. Now, having said all this, let's go to class setup number 1 for the MCW. So starting off with the muzzle, we have the L4R flash hider, and this is in my opinion one of the 2 essential attachments you need to use for the MCW, whether you're building a no recoil or movement class. If you're on controller, you can press L2 and you can see which stats change in more detail. Now I have calculated all percentage changes with all 5 attachments combined, and we are going to be comparing them with different class setups. Next, we have the MCW Cyclone Long Barrel, and although this was nerfed in a previous update, it is a very solid and popular choice. This improves your weapon damage range and bullet velocity so that your bullets actually connect. For optic, I am using the MK3 reflector, and this is just a personal preference, so feel free to use whatever optic you like. Now for stock, I went with the SL Warforged Precision stock, which improves a recoil ganking. A lot of people might also be going with the R-Bill Heavy stock in this case, which also improves recoil, but this specific attachment was nerfed in one of the previous updates, so I highly recommend you guys not to use it. And finally, we have the second essential attachment, which is going to be the RB Claw PSL grip for rear grip, and you can clearly see how much it improves recoil control. Now if we actually view the overall stat changes, we can clearly see a decent reduction of both horizontal and vertical recoil up to 20%, and an increase in the damage range and bullet velocity up to 15 and 18% respectively, with the only downside being the reduction of both ADS and sprint to fire speed, which is not that high. Now apart from that, we have a huge reduction on the hip fire and tactical stance spread, but really you don't need to worry about that, especially when using an AR. Additionally, there are some weapon stats that can be improved when using certain perks, and this means that you can have an extra attachment slot. For example, instead of using the RB Precision Heavy stock, which improves the aiming idle sway and the fire aim stability, you can instead use the marksman gloves, which have a very similar effect. As you can see here, reduce sway and flinch while ADS. So the same goes for the boots as well. So you can use the Stalker boots, for example, to improve your strafe and ADS movement instead of using an underbarrel attachment that improves the movement of your weapon. So in this case, you are giving up on the cover sneakers, but then again, you can use Dead Silence as your field upgrade in order to eliminate your footsteps. So my point is, apart from all the attachments combinations, you can also add certain perks and field upgrades that suit your playstyle. Now let's move to class number 2, and again this is primarily based on recoil improvement, with the only difference being that now I am replacing the stock with the XM Phantom 5 handstop underbarrel, and this is a very popular attachment that a lot of professional players are using. This gives you improvements in recoil control as well as ADS and sprint to fire speed, but affects your horizontal recoil. But if we go back to the recoil pattern that we did at the beginning of this video, the MCW has mostly vertical recoil, so this is something you don't need to worry about. Here are the overall percentage changes, and you can clearly understand how one different attachment affects the overall weapon stats. So now we have a better vertical recoil control and a huge change in the sprint to fire speed, and also a very small reduction in horizontal and ganking control. Again, you really don't need to care about the hip fire spread or tactical stance spread, which in this case is reduced up to 50%. I just included it in this video to show you how insignificant this is. Moving on to MCW class number 3, and in terms of the overall weapon stat changes, this stands somewhere between class 1 and class 2. Again, we will be changing the underbarrel to the SL skeletal vertical grip, which improves ADS, vertical recoil, and sprint to fire speed. So here are the total stat changes as well, with a very good reduction in both the horizontal and vertical recoil, and only a very small increase in the ADS and sprint to fire speed, which makes it a very good choice as well. Finally, the last MCW class setup and my personal favorite, and this is mostly focused on movement, max strafe, and recoil improvement. We'll be using one of the most popular underbarrels in the game, which is going to be the DR6 hand stop. If we look at the weapon stats, you can understand why most professional players prefer this class. The only negative you get is shown in red is none other than the hip fire accuracy, which does not affect you as an AR player. All of the other stats are in green or not affected at all. Having said all this, let's move on to the SMGs and specifically the Rival 9. Unlike the MCW, the Rival 9 has a huge issue when it comes to horizontal recoil, and as you can see from the recoil pattern, we have this little zigzag shape. So if we want to build a class based on recoil, we need to primarily improve the horizontal, and here's where the Purifier muzzle comes in as our first attachment, which increases the horizontal recoil and aiming stability at the expense of bullet velocity and range. For underbarrel, again, we have the Extend Phantom handstop for improvements in recoil, ADS speed, and sprint to fire. The Rival C as the barrel, and this is just to basically increase the range of this gun, and the FOV when aiming down sights as well, and the horizontal recoil even more. For stock, I went with the MTZ Marauder stock, which further improves recoil and aiming stability. And finally, for the rear grip, I went with the Rise Vice Assault grip, which further improves the overall recoil control. Now, here are the overall stats of this specific combination of attachments, with the key features being that horizontal recoil is now reduced by 28% and the ADS speed is increased by 10. Rival class setup number 2 is very similar to the first one, with the only difference being that we are changing the underbarrel to the DR6 hand stop, and this overall improves the movement speed and ADS speed at the expense of vertical recoil, which for this specific class works out. Now finally, we have the last class setup for this video, which is going to be the buff Striker 9. There was a recent patch in which they ended up buffing the Striker 9, and although this increased the recoil a lot, we will beat an improved version which is dominant in both short range and medium range fights. Again, started off with the Purifier muzzle brings for improvements in horizontal recoil. For barrel, I went with the Striker recoil long barrel, which increases damage range but slightly reduces ADS speed and sprint to fire speed. But those stats are already high for an SMG, therefore it doesn't really matter. For stock, I went with the RB Crotalus Assault stock, which improves final recoil, ganking control, and ADS speed. Underbarrel, again, we have the Extend Phantom 5 hand stop. And finally, for the rear grip, I went with the Sakin ZX grip, which basically improves the overall recoil of the weapon even more. Now, here are the final weapon stats when using this combination of attachments. With improvements in both recoil and effective damage range, you're good to go. And as you can see, this weapon is much more accurate. I have also seen quite a lot of people using an optic on this gun, which in my opinion is quite unnecessary, especially for an SMG. But if you really don't like the iron sights, then feel free to do so. So that's all for me, guys. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Which class setup was your favorite? Let me know in the comment section below. This is Shadowiiy, and as always, take care.